Today on Hearts of Heroes, astonishing aerial rescues. After a flash flood rolls through Texas, a trapped couple are in for the ride of their lives.
She grabbed a hold of her dog, basically just bear hugged it, and then that's whenever we went up and were able to get out of the tree.
Plus, when Hurricane Florence pummels North Carolina, the U.S. Coast Guard flies in to help.
560, I've got 2 people down here that need to get out.
We all joined the Coast Guard to save human lives, and it's a bonus when we can do other than that, too.
The heroics performed by our armed forces in many cases is unmatched.
Deep in the heart of Texas, Hill Country is known for its abundant rivers and breathtaking views. But when storms roll in, it can quickly go from breathtaking to life-taking.
Thankfully, the Lone Star State has no shortage of heroes. And when floodwaters started to rise in 2018, the only way out was up.
Junction, Texas. It sits about 140 miles west of the state capital, Austin. Located where 2 rivers meet, the North and South Llano, this sleepy little town is a great place to fish, hunt, and just enjoy Mother Nature. But for Debbie Thomas, her short vacation with boyfriend Bobby and dog Chaps took a very unexpected turn. She soon found out why locals call Hill Country by another nickname, Flash Flood Alley.
Got there Saturday morning and camped, and we'd planned on leaving Monday morning to go home. We'd been fishing Sunday evening, and it started sprinkling a little bit, and we decided to go ahead and put the fishing stuff up and got in the camper.
I finally laid there and went to sleep, and the rain, because I like to hear the rain pitter-pattering on the tin.
Junction here in particular, we've been getting a lot of rain. They got around an estimated 12 inches of rain in a couple of hours. And with the ground being so wet and not soaking in, all of that rain just drained off into the creeks and the streams and the rivers. And so it was basically like a wall of water coming down, and the people were unsuspecting.
Luckily for Debbie and Bobby, while they slept, her trusty dog Chaps became the first hero of the day by giving them a very helpful heads up.
He jumped up on the bed, and his paws were wet. And so I looked down on the floor, and I could see the carpet was wet. So I went over and opened the door, and water was flooding in the camper. And so I woke Bobby up and told him we need to get out.
The South Llano River had flooded its banks and entered the RV park, swirling around them as they had scrambled to get out. The water was already 2.5 feet high and rising at an alarming rate. With no escape route, Bobby knew that their best bet was to get as much elevation as possible as quickly as they could. So the only option was really to climb into one of the trees that was still above water.
I told Bobby it's still too high. And the next thing I knew, he pushed me up, and I made it. And then he hit me Chaps, and then somehow or another he got up.
They were safe for the moment, but needed help urgently.
I reached for my phone and I called 911, and he said they'd have him there.
Bobby heroically managed their conditions as best he could.
It's a good thing we got in that tree right when we did. I guarantee you within 10 minutes, it's already above her waist.
Then, first responders arrived on the bridge just above the RV park. With the ferocious current making a water rescue impossible, the rescue workers had to improvise by guiding 2 life jackets on a rope toward the tree.
Finally, Bobby reached and got him off. It had one to me, and I got it on, and I had Chaps. He was like just clinging to the tree, bark like a cat.
The Department of Public Safety was sending a helicopter to the scene. With the rescue team zooming toward the RV park, the flood victims finally had hope.
I could hear the faint distant helicopter coming. It was the best noise I'd ever heard in my life.
Despite the devastation and danger around them, the responders thoroughly scouted the area.
At that point in time, I'm trying to read the water, see what obstacles could be in there, because if something happens to me, if I get put in the water, I've got to try and figure out an exit strategy.
So we lowered the rescue swimmer down into the tree to our first victim, which ended up being an older gentleman, a male.
I wanted to get her to Shaps first, and he said, no, I'm taking you. So well, let me get Shaps then, because I was worried about Shaps not being able to go. I was scared to death. And he said, no, we got to go.
Before they took off, he turned to me and said, "I'll be back for you." I said, "Okay." And I felt better.
We performed what we call a short haul, where we don't bring them all the way up to the door of the helicopter. We just basically take them directly to a safe spot and set them right back down.
It was a relief to me. I felt good just hanging in there. It was a good feeling to be out of that tree.
There was no time to celebrate. Debbie and Chaps were still stuck in that tree that was being pounded by rushing rapids. Coming up, when they return to rescue Debbie and her dog, rescuers need some help of their own.
I hit a limb that was up above her, and I actually ended up in the water myself.
Then, rising floodwaters call for nothing less than the U.S. Coast Guard.
It just kept coming up higher and higher, and the wind just kept getting stronger and stronger.
But first, a tip on how to keep you safe.
Emergencies and disasters can strike quickly and often without warning. They can force you to evacuate your neighborhood or potentially be confined to your home or other structure for some time until help can arrive.
To ensure the greatest amount of safety for you and your family, prepare in advance by making a safety plan and rehearsing it with your loved ones. You should also put together a preparedness kit complete with water, food, and medical essentials.
Knowing what to do in case of natural disaster is your responsibility. Prepare now, so you'll have the greatest chance of securing safety.
When a devastating flash flood rolled into Junction, Texas in October 2018, trapping a couple and their dog in a tree, heroes leapt into action. Pilot Sean Stevenson, hoist operator Jeff Evans, and rescue swimmer Cody Buckaloo had just rescued Bobby Dillon from a tree.
Cody was able to get him out of the strop, get back onto the cable, and I hoisted Cody back up, and we went back to the tree for the female.
But on the way back to collect Bobby's girlfriend, Debbie Thomas, and her frightened dog, Chaps, the situation turned perilous.
Coming down to actually retrieve her, I hit a limb that was up above her, and it knocked me off balance, and I lost my footing, and I actually ended up in the water myself. The TFO, Jeff, was actually able to start reeling me in, kind of like a fishing pole. It was coming down estimated 30,000 cubic feet per second. There's no way I can fight and swim against that.
We maneuvered the helicopter to get back to where he had fallen in and over him, and then we picked him back up, placed him back in the tree, and he was able to crawl up to where the female was.
Even for an experienced rescue swimmer like Cody, rescuing a person and a dog at the same time presented unique challenges.
I put her in the quick drop backwards, which basically bowed her over forward, so she was leaning away from me.
I said, "I gotta take my dog," and he said, "We'd try." But he said, "You gotta hold him."
She was spent. I mean, I don't blame her. I mean, she'd been there holding onto that tree for 5 hours in the fight of her life.
When I felt him kind of raise me up, I grabbed a hold, put my arms around Shep's neck, and then when we took off, I locked my legs around him.
She grabbed a hold of her dog, basically just bear hugged it, and then that's whenever we went up and were able to get out of the tree.
And it just seemed like no time we were up to the helicopter, this guy took Shaps, and then they pushed me in. I was turned, and Cody's like right here, and I was hugging him, kissing him, and thanking him, thanking him, thanking him for saving my life.
She put her arms around Cody and just held him, pulled him in tight. You know, looked like the warmest, friendliest hug I've ever seen. And she held him all the way till we got to the ground back at the command post.
After 5 exhausting hours in that tree, Debbie gave Cody a hug that lasted nearly 2 full minutes.
All I can say is thank every one of the responders and thank Cody for risking his life for ours and everybody involved in it.
He just seemed like such a sweet guy, and I just can't wait to meet him in person again and hug and kiss him again.
The fact that I can come out and I can help these people go home at the end of the day, that's the best thing in the world.
Coming up, a historic hurricane leaves a couple and their 6 dogs with no way to escape.
That water, the way it was coming in, I didn't think we were ever going to make it out.
Ask
anyone on the East Coast or the Gulf Coast, and they know how devastating hurricanes can be. You've got that life-threatening storm surge, the wind, and of course they could deliver feet of rain.
Thankfully, when water is involved, there is one heroic group always there to help, the U.S. Coast Guard.
Rocky Point, North Carolina is a small rural community just outside Wilmington. Even with the threat of hurricanes, those who live there wouldn't think to live anywhere else.
It's beautiful. I mean, I'd recommend anybody to come and live down here because the weather is just so gorgeous for people.
But in September of 2018, that gorgeous weather got turned upside down.
Hurricane Florence was gaining strength and widening. It definitely looked like it was going to have drastic impact on our borders and on the coastline.
Like many who live in hurricane country, John and Mary Williams did not heed the initial evacuation orders, hoping that the storm might not be as bad as projected.
I'm stubborn. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. Come find out, it didn't pass through like I was hoping it would.
It was a hurricane for the history books. Florence cut a swath more than 500 miles wide. Most devastating in all of that, the slow pace. Crawling along at just 2 to 3 miles per hour, it was able to drop more than 18 trillion gallons of water. That meant unprecedented flooding in both North and South Carolina.
That area was very saturated with rainfall, but more importantly, that area was right next to the Cape Fear River. But with the storm still lingering over the area and the heavy rainfall, that Cape Fear River was still flowing very high and going to continue rising.
It just kept coming up higher and higher, and the wind just kept getting stronger and stronger. And I was just very scared, very scared.
All the doors were inside the house. They were on our bed, and they were scared because the water was over their heads.
With the power and cell towers out, John and Mary and their 6 dogs were stranded without any way to contact the outside world.
That water, the way it was coming in, I didn't think we were ever going to make it out. That water was just coming in so fast.
Coming up, to save John and Mary, the Coast Guard team has to make a dangerous rescue with one of their own dangling by a wire.
It's the most dangerous thing we do is hoist, especially with somebody on the line.
But first, a safety tip.
It's never too early to evacuate ahead of a hurricane, especially if authorities are encouraging you to do so.
If the authorities are saying to evacuate, it's for a reason. Your safety is at risk. Though you may think you can ride it out and be safe, no one can predict the extent of the damage severe weather causes.
And if you're feeling unsafe but are unable to go, find someone in your community who can help. Family and communities are about togetherness. We all look out for one another. Together, we can build a better, safer future.
In September 2018, Hurricane Florence inundated parts of the southeast coast, claiming several lives and doing $24 billion worth of damage. North Carolina was the hardest hit. 19,000 people made it to shelters, but many tried to ride out the storm at home, and they were now in a dire situation. Among them, John and Mary Williams of Rocky Point, plus their 6 dogs.
I mean, you couldn't even see the trees. They were just underwater, completely underwater.
With no way to communicate with those trapped in the floodwater, the Coast Guard began early morning search and rescue.
So when we got on scene there, those houses had water up to the roof. It didn't take long for us to see the people in those houses waving for help.
We were waving our hands for them to come because we wanted to be rescued.
The house was surrounded by trees, 100, 125 feet tall. On all 4 sides, high power lines. So as a flight mechanic, you're not just worried about tangling your cable up. You actually have a rescue swimmer attached to that cable. And it's the most dangerous thing we do.
They sent me down on the cable. I was lowered next to a submerged car. was able to traverse through the water up to a porch where I met this guy. He says, I've got 6 dogs, my wife and I in this house that, is partially submerged, and they're looking to get out.
560, I've got 2 people down here that need to get out. We are looking at 5, 6, it looks like a whole bunch of boxers, a couple of lashes.
Our first responders are trained for this. However, this isn't easy, and adding animals into the mix only adds concern and greater bravery to Brad and the crew.
So, the crew on the scene had to determine if the rescue was even possible.
Our helicopter is very weight limited, very power limited, very fuel limited. We can't exceed our limitations. And we got to worry about how many people we can fit in our helicopter safely in doing so, too.
After conferring, the crew decided they would try to make the entire rescue work with multiple trips.
It becomes very intricate as far as how we're going to get this basket to the safest location to not put these people any more risk than we have to. So I don't want to bring her back out into the water. There's down power lines, there's debris, there could be snakes. Who knows what's in that water?
Wherever you sit right down inside here, we'll get this dog in here with you.
They had the basket drop down, and he was going, come on now, I'm gonna put you in with 1 dog. And I was like, me? And he was like, yeah, you.
Once Fitzpatrick got Mary and the dog loaded in, he gave the all clear to Wiseman in the helicopter.
And I held my dog so tight, and we just went up in the air together. After I got up in the sky, I was a little scared, but not that scared, just very happy to be rescued.
Once Mary was lifted, Lieutenant Smith brought the helicopter back for John.
It was really tricky at first because I had to put the basket between a car and their porch stairs, which was probably about a 10-foot area.
And there was still the issue of how to get the remaining animals out alive.
There's all these animals that need to be rescued, and I've got dogs. I'm a dog lover. I wouldn't want to leave my pets behind either. I didn't want to send the dogs. I was very uncomfortable that they might get finicky and try to jump out.
Which is exactly what happened. So when one of the dogs got spooked, Fitzpatrick secured him back at the house so John and the other dog could be pulled out to safety. With 4 more dogs remaining, the crew welcomed help from other rescue divers. And in no time, the dogs were being whisked away and eventually reunited with their owners.
The Coast Guards, they were wonderful. They saved our lives and these babies' lives. And I thank them so much, and they couldn't have done a better job.
Thanks to the readiness and bravery of the United States Coast Guard, as well as other federal and state agencies, John and Mary Williams, plus thousands of other survivors, came through Hurricane Florence with their lives. And once the work of saving lives was finished, it was time to rescue the group that supports heroes in the Coast Guard, as well as the entire armed services.
The USO, or United Service Organization, was started during World War II as a means to provide entertainment, programs, and overall morale support to the families and members of the U.S. Armed Forces.
So when Hurricane Florence damaged the oldest operating USO in the country, Sheldon Yellen from our sponsor Belfour jumped in. They had the honor of helping this organization that does so much to help our men and women in uniform.
Everything good?
Yep.
Thank you for all that you're doing.
How are you, man?
You good? Everything good?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for all that you're doing.
No problem, man.
Thank you.
No problem.
When you look across this country of ours and you see the opportunity that you see, it is from our military, it is from our first responders that allow the semblance of order in our society to take place and to allow us the opportunities in front of us. That's why it's an honor to be here today.
Our mission is to connect our men and women in uniform with their home, with their family, and with the nation. And you guys represent the nation.
Without your trust and belief, we don't get to perform. And so for that, know that we're grateful, and it's an honor for us to be able to serve you. To the dedicated men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard and the members of police and fire departments everywhere, we give our deepest, heartfelt thanks.
It's these brave folks who stand tall and are always there when we need them most. We surely appreciate them. We know you do too, and we appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.